Chapter 4: How Strategy Impacts Achievement. Leadership is about influence, but influence alone does not produce results. I learned that the hard way. Early in my career, I believed something simple. If I worked harder, pushed more, stayed involved in everything, results would follow. They did not, because effort does not scale. Execution does. That was the first shift. The second, understanding the gap. Strategy tells you where you want to go, but execution determines whether you ever actually get there. And that gap between knowing and doing is where most leaders fail. This is where the second principle of the four modus operandi, lead measures, becomes critical. Leadership truth. Strategy creates direction. Execution creates results. Great leaders master both. Most people are trained to think. Very few are trained to execute. That is the gap, and that is where this chapter lives. The question that changed everything. I started noticing a pattern. Different teams, different industries, different levels of talent, but the same outcome. Clear strategy with inconsistent results. And I remember asking myself, how can everyone understand the goal but still miss it? That question changed everything, because it forced me to stop looking at effort and start looking at execution. My turning point, the Radio Shack meeting. I still remember the day. I had just been promoted to a store manager. The store needed everything: sales, structure, direction. And then I got a calendar invite, a 3-hour meeting later the same day. My first thought was, there's no way I have time for this. I was buried. And like most new managers, I thought that the answer was simple. Work harder, move faster, stay busy. So a 3-hour meeting, it felt like a distraction. I almost didn't go, but I did. And within the first few minutes, I realized something. I was not looking at motivation. I was looking at a system, a way to take a goal and turn it into a result. Up until that moment, I had been managing effort, but what I saw in that room was different. Structure, clarity, execution, and that moment changed how I lead, and it became the foundation of what I now call the four modus operandi of achievement. The real problem most leaders miss. Most organizations do not fail because of a bad strategy. They fail because of inconsistent execution. That's the uncomfortable truth, because strategy feels productive. Execution feels repetitive. One is exciting. The other requires discipline, where everything started to stick. After that meeting, I went back to my store with a completely different mindset. Not how do I get people to work harder, but how do I make results predictable? That led me to something simple. If results are inconsistent, then the system is broken. And if the system's broken, then no amount of effort can fix it. From complexity to clarity. When I rolled out new goals in my store, I made a mistake. I overcomplicated everything with multiple goals, multiple priorities, and too many moving parts. And one of my reps said something that stuck with me. Just tell me what matters. Every manager says something different. He wasn't resisting. He was confused. And he was right. I had created noise, not clarity. So I simplified everything. One goal. Increase average ticket size with one behavior. Attach one accessory per sale. We tracked it every day. And that is when everything started to change. The shift from compliance to commitment. At first, the team complied. They did what I asked. But compliance does not scale. Everything changed when the goal became theirs, not mine. That's when performance accelerated. They stopped asking, how much do I have to do today? And started asking, how much more can I do? Key insight. Compliance produces effort. Commitment produces excellence. And here's what I learned. People do not change because they are told to do so. They change because they trust the person that is asking them to change. That is where emotional connection comes in. When people feel seen, valued, and understood, they don't just follow instructions. They take ownership. I learned this lesson the hard way as well, when I thought that I had a performance problem. At the time, I was leading a team responsible for hitting an aggressive operational and revenue target. I had rolled out clear goals, expectations, and metrics. On paper, everything was right. But half of the team resisted. Not openly, not dramatically, just enough to slow everything down. At first, I labeled it what most leaders would do. It's a performance issue. It was not. The problem was ownership. They did not see themselves in the outcome. So I changed how I led. Instead of pushing harder, I sat down with each person individually, not to review their performance, but to understand what they wanted, what mattered to them, what they were working towards, what success looked like in their life, not just in business. Then I connected those goals to the outcomes that we were driving as a team, and everything shifted. The people who had resisted started taking ownership. The same expectations that felt forced now became personal. That's when I understood something that has changed how I lead ever since. Compliance produces effort, but commitment produces excellence. The bigger lesson. As leaders, we often focus on the what, the how, but it is the why that actually drives behavior. When people believe in the mission, they bring their best. And when that happens, results follow. The reality of leadership. During that same time period, there was a larger initiative across the entire district to increase DirecTV sales. And looking back, I often think about two things: the decision to attend that meeting and what it set in motion afterwards. Because that decision did not just change how I managed, it changed how I saw leadership. At the time, our district manager, Christopher DeClerc, had just recently stepped into his role, and was clear from the beginning that he was not there to maintain the status quo. He had a vision, not just for the numbers, but for performance. He understood something that most leaders miss. His success would not come from what he did. It would come from what his managers were able to execute. And for that, we all had to get better, fast. Before Christopher, the district operated very differently. From everything that I was told and quickly beginning to see, the environment was driven by pressure and fear. People were afraid to make mistakes, afraid to try something new, afraid of being wrong. And when that happens, you don't get innovation. You don't get ownership. You get hesitation. And hesitation kills performance. So when Christopher stepped in, he did not just inherit a performance problem, he inherited a culture problem. And I will be honest, at the time, I did not fully understand how big that shift was going to be. I just knew the expectations were rising, and the clock was ticking. There was pressure, real pressure, not just to improve, but to turn things around. And it didn't happen overnight. In fact, there were moments where it felt like we were going backwards. I remember days where we would make progress only to lose it the next week. In my store, I saw it firsthand. Some of my team leaned in immediately. They were ready, motivated, bought into the change. Others, they pushed back, not aggressively, but subtly, questioning the process, dragging their feet, waiting to see if this was just another initiative. And if I'm being honest, there were moments where I questioned it too. Because change is uncomfortable, even when you know it's necessary. I had to learn how to navigate both sides, driving results while building belief. Because without belief, execution will never last. Over time, something started to shift. Not all at once, but gradually. The conversations got better. The clarity improved. The consistency started to show. And eventually, the results followed. Within 18 months, cell phone sales had increased by over 60% in my store. Accessory attachment rates improved by over 40%, and DirecTV sales increased by 75%. But those numbers do not tell the full story. What mattered more was how we got there. Through resistance, through setbacks, through learning how to lead people, not just manage performance. That period taught me something that I still carry with me to this day. You do not build a high-performance team by demanding it to do so. You build it by creating clarity, trust, and consistency over time. And most importantly, you must be willing to stay in it, even when it feels like it's not working. This stuff is hard, but it can absolutely be done. Here's your Chapter 4 action steps. Identify one strategy you are currently working on. Define the behaviors that will be required to execute it with excellence. And identify where execution currently is breaking down. And your reflection question: are you more focused on planning or producing results? What's next is in the following chapters, we are going to dive deeper into the 4 modus operandi of achievement, exploring proven practices that will not only help you develop strategies, but also ensure that you can actually achieve them. By focusing on both strategy and behavioral change, you will unlock the full potential of your leadership.